another video, and we are going to continue our conversation from the last video. The last video we kind of talked about why is it important to communicate in marriage. So if you haven't watched that video, go ahead and go back and listen to part one. This part, we want to talk about how to communicate. It was so profound to me recently, honey, when we were talking about communication and marriage and things, that you pointed out the fact that it's not so much about communicating solely in marriage, but how you communicate. And that's something that we had to learn in this short amount of time of being married. Again, just 2.5, going on 2.5 years, is that we are different and we communicate different. And learning how your spouse communicates is very, very, very important. So because we are both, one thing that me and my husband have in common is that we are both very non-confrontational, right? That's great. However, because we are non-confrontational, we approach confrontation and issues differently. Because we're non-confrontational, I'm the person that wants to get it done and over with. Let's talk about this right now. Let's clear the air before anybody goes to sleep. If we got to stay up to 5 o'clock in the morning, we're going to talk about this and get it resolved. Because I don't like lingering confrontation. Because he's non-confrontational, he doesn't want to talk about everything right in the moment, because it can be even more confrontational than what it needs to be. He likes to go back and assess the issue, think about a resolution, and bring his best self to the conversation for a resolution. So how you communicate is very, very important.
That is so true. We're very different, but we're also in the same that we're, like she said, we're both non-confrontational people. If we can help it, we don't want to get into arguments. We don't want to, get into fights, and we just want to kind of blow by it, pass by it if possible. But even that can be unhealthy in itself, because like we touched in the last video, you have to communicate. You don't want to go the whole day not talking to your spouse, not talking about something that went wrong. But you also want to give your spouse an opportunity and a safe place to communicate with you and say, hey, I don't like when you did this. I don't like when this happened, and let them know that you have opportunity to come to you and talk to you about what's on their heart, what's in their feelings. Now, she mentioned me. In most cases, I'm going to need a few hours, or I want to talk to you the next day to address something. That's just me. Because sometimes I feel like when you're in the heat of the moment, right after an argument or a disagreement, sometimes I feel like you can make more of an issue. You need to kind of go your separate ways, take time to, relax, cool down, analyze, think about it, then come back and talk about what you need to, get off your heart and talk about what's on your mind. So don't wait too long. Don't say, well, let's talk about this next week. I don't think that's correct. But take a day, take a few hours, which is what I like to do. Naisha, if she had her way, she'll talk right then and there till 5 a.m. in the morning. So give your spouse time and see what's their preference on communication. And Naisha, what's the best way to go about finding out what your spouse's communication language is?
You need to be intentional about that. It's not something that you are probably going to go into marriage knowing that you need to find that out. It's something that along the way you're going to have to realize that, hey, we're communicating differently. We need to get on the same page some way, somehow. So being intentional about it, basically asking questions. We have to get to that point. I'm like, okay, when there's an issue and you don't want to talk about it right then and there, when would you like to talk about it and why? Understanding the why he's like that put a lot of things in perspective for me, because then I started to realize that it's not that he doesn't care about the issue. It's not that he doesn't resolve it. This completely aligns with who he is and who he's always been and how he deals with resolution. So basically just being intentional to answer your question, say, okay, how do you like to and why is that? And when he was able to tell me that I like to think about resolutions before coming back to the conversation. I like to analyze. I like to let emotions aside. This is another reason why I like to talk about things at a later time. Then it helps put things in perspective. I'm like, okay, I can understand that. I can get behind that. Even though it's still not my first preference, that's how he is. And at the end of the day, what is it more about? Is it more about winning who's going to win when we communicate, or is it more about getting a resolution? So if I'm more for getting a resolution, I'm going to go ahead and get in line with what he needs to feel and how he needs to be for the conversation to happen.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Learning your spouse's communication language. You heard there's a love language, or there's also a communication language. How your spouse best communicates. Once you learn that and the why behind it, your communication is going to be a lot more effective, and it's going to happen and increase a lot more.
Yeah.
Before you know it, your spouse is going to come to you, about so much, and you're like, wow, what? The communication changed dramatically. But once you create a safe place for your spouse to come to you, you learn how and why they want to communicate, you learn that about them, your communication is going to be a lot more effective than just solely communicating. Learn how to communicate, and the communication will go to another level in your marriage.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you want to touch on?
No. We're going to continue this series in another video, so stay tuned and keep watching.
See you next time, guys.